On July 1, 1941, the 502nd Parachute Infantry Regiment, the 50 Deuce, was activated. The Deuce airdropped into Normandy to fight behind enemy lines during the D-Day invasion. Just 3 months later, the 502nd jumped into battle, this time in the Dutch countryside for Operation Market Garden. During the Battle of the Bulge, despite overwhelming odds, the 502nd halted the last German offensive at the gates of Bastogne. At the conclusion of World War II, the 502nd was one of the Army's most decorated units. 20 years later, the 502nd again answered the call to the defense of freedom, this time in Southeast Asia, for the Republic of South Vietnam. The 502nd fought in 15 major campaigns, ranging from Hue City during the Tet Offensive in 1968 to the Delta regions in the south. Due to the combat effectiveness of the 101st, enemy commanders warned their units to avoid risking any engagement because defeat was certain. The 502nd left Vietnam with one of the most fearsome reputations in the U.S. Army. Soldiers of the 502nd deployed to Iraq as part of Desert Shield in 1990. The 502nd took part in the largest helicopter assault in history while defeating Iraqi forces in the Euphrates Valley. The 101st has the distinction as being the Army's one and only air assault division. In February 2003, the 502nd deployed to Iraq as part of the invasion force that destroyed the Iraqi Republican Guard. The unit fought battles at Anajef, Karbala, Mosul, and Baghdad. The 50 Deuce returned to Iraq for OIF 05-07 and defeated insurgents in Iraq's major cities. During OIF 07-09, the Deuce returned as part of the surge force that turned the tide of Operation Iraqi Freedom. The 502nd has been the Army's most called upon unit over the past 70 years. Second Battalion, 502nd Infantry Regiment, 2nd Brigade Combat Team, 101st Airborne Division valiantly participated in Regional Command South's Operation Dragon Strike during OEF 10-11. Strike Force soldiers gallantly and aggressively carried out operations across multiple lines of effort in Zarwe and Maiwand districts in the province of Kandahar, the most volatile and kinetic area in Afghanistan. 2502 arrived in Zarwe and Maiwand districts during the fighting season of the summer of 2010 and immediately partnered with an Afghan National Army Kandak that had no combat experience and proceeded to form Combined Action Strike Force. Strike Force entered the fight and courageously encountered a determined, proficient, and prepared enemy that controlled the Zarwe and Maiwand area of operations from prepared defensive belts. 2nd Battalion distinguished itself with extraordinary heroism while engaged in military operations against an armed, entrenched enemy who controlled the area for over 2 years. Strike Force demonstrated their valor, courage, and commitment to mission success by spearheading Operation Dragon Strike. Over a period of 10 months, 2502 systematically trained its Afghan partners. 2502 aggressively conducted numerous clearance operations in order to dislodge a determined and prepared enemy force unwilling to surrender Sangsar, the birthplace of the Taliban. During the deployment, 2nd Battalion displayed unprecedented acts of valor. Strike Force soldiers distinguished themselves with their unmatched standards, discipline, morale, and readiness. Eager to accept any mission, 2502 honorably and faithfully served the nation by creating a secure and stable environment in AO Strike. Strike Force confiscated and destroyed hundreds of IEDs and weapons-making materials, dropped over 190,000 pounds of ordnance, confirmed 72 enemy killed, and estimated an additional 69 enemy killed. Strike Force had 272 IED finds, 109 IED strikes, 370 direct fire contacts. The Taliban tried everything to dislodge Strike Force, but their attacks only strengthened our resolve to complete the mission.
I got back into housing Madad on the night of the 19th. The next morning, there had been a engagement on a PSC convoy from south of Highway 1, and battalion had conducted a kinetic strike on enemy position south of the highway, and it was determined that we needed to do a battle damage assessment to go and find out what the actual overall damage was. We had designed the operation to where a route clearance team attached to me, I think it was the Arkansas National Guard, would clear a trail down a route that hadn't been used since the Canadians were there in '06. So we were going to push down this route and use it to get in close to provide a support by fire, provide a good place for command and control of the different elements there, and to be able to cover the dismounted element as they're down pretty much in Indian country, checking out these compounds that had been struck with the GBU that morning. We started pushing down with our mounted element, and got about probably 400 meters south of the highway when one of the RCP vehicles struck an IED. We had all driven over top of it. Matter of fact, my vehicle had just passed over top of it, and the RCP vehicle was one of the reserve trucks. Came around, backed up, and hit it. Basically, that's what started the engagement. As soon as the IED attack happened, we started receiving small arms fire from anywhere from 75 meters to our nearest position out to about 200 meters. And what the enemy was doing was running a series of canals that ran east-west directly in front of our position. So they could move laterally and engage us, move and engage us. And they had the ability also to influence where my attack company platoon with 1st Sergeant was, because they could run that same ditch line. It led all the way over to where they were. So we came into a series of contacts, what we estimate to be at least 10 different personnel. There were multiple machine guns that were directly in contact with us, and then there was a machine gun position that we believe was firing at this mount element to our east, and they would run like a resupply. Guys would, you'd hear a gun cut off here, and then these guys would pick up, and then they would kick off here later. So we knew that they were shuttling munitions and men back and forth. Simultaneous to this, Command Sergeant Major Henderson and the TAC element had gone to Spin Pier to try to hold down the fort there, because I'd pretty much completed my whole company at this point, and help provide some cover to the west. Well, they started receiving fire down the canal line, and the battalion TAC came in. They got decisively engaged. Small arms fire. There was machine gun position south of Spin Pier there. So basically, you had a fight on 3 fronts. You had the dismount element trying to conduct BDA assessment and contact. You had our element had just had an IED strike. Had a couple of guys who had concussions from that. We were working the Casevac. Then you had the battalion TAC in contact to the west. Became very busy very quick. We had at one point in time 6 air weapons teams on station, and luckily my boss let me do what I had to do and coordinate fires for all 6 teams, and it was just run through, identify targets. I was using my truck and using our fires to identify positions as close as 75 meters from us where the enemy was firing from, and just bringing CCA team after CCA team in until they went Winchester and sent them back to Passab to reload. We conducted about 3 hours of non-stop kinetic strikes using CCA. We brought in British tornadoes, dropped a couple of GBUs. So it was basically chaos for about 3 hours. A lot of very, very kinetic. We had to get out and figure out what was going on with RCP element, how much damage they had to their vehicles. I mean, not only did we have a platoon in contact, our element was in contact, the TAC was in contact, now we had casualties, now we had a vehicle that had to be recovered. We had to coordinate for that and set up some kind of hasty defense to get them out of there. And then, by the way, simultaneous to that, the dismount element had 5 of their personnel become heat casualties. So, very complex in the things that were going on at the same time. 1st Sergeant Allen, which has been recognized for his heroism, managed to get those guys out basically by leading a dismounted clearance in front of a mounted element down to those guys, arranging for Casevac, and then leading the Casevac guys down to him to get them out and getting those guys out by himself. I mean, the their gizmo mine detectors had stopped working because of the heat, so they had no way of clearing a trail out. And he took it on himself to clear that lane, go grab the Kazakh personnel and get them out of there. So that's taking place. He's under fire. We're coordinating air assets for him while he's basically running back and forth between his Kazakh elements. At my situation, we're trying to figure out how bad the situation is in the vehicles. We were able to get the 3 casualties out. Luckily for us, they were all walking wounded, concussions, no serious injuries. They still required Kazakh. Got them out to an element on Highway 1 to get them to Housing Madad for medevac. In the course of trying to maneuver elements down to get to them, to load their vehicle up and conduct recovery, there was 2 more IEDs that went off. So basically about anything that could have happened did. As it got dark and we had got the dismount element out in the exfilled back to Highway 1, and we managed to conduct the recovery of the vehicles with the RCP element that struck the IED. The battalion TAC kind of provided us some cover off to the west as we began our exfil, and we were honestly in contact until we got to Highway 1. We dropped the last GBU as our vehicles hit Highway 1 and turned back towards housing.
On May 18th, we did a air assault in the 175's old AO, and we landed about 3 a.m., set up security. As daybreak happened, we started our movement. We crossed the road and set up a little security halt, sent up an element, to go find a building to occupy so they can do a key leader engagement. And as we were about to go up and do a key leader engagement, we took 1 RPG. It missed us, no one was wounded, so at that time we knew that there was enemy presence in the area. I was on the rooftop. There's 2 machine guns positions. I was on the left side. Specialist Curtin and PFC Williams were on the right side. Kind of set up security. We reorganized, and then we couldn't PID anything, so we continued our movement into the village. We strongholded a unoccupied building, set up security on the roof and on the perimeter of the building, and half the platoon did a key leader engagement. And I was in the prone pulling security, and then all of a sudden we started taking rounds on the right side of the building, and Specialist Curtin was killed instantly. Specialist Williams took 1 round to the left shoulder, and he got up. I helped him down off the roof, assessed Curtin, saw that he was immediately dead. Then started returning fire with the 240 to the enemy, and then we started taking RPGs to the roof. And then I put the 240 down, picked up my M4 and started shooting HE, DP at the enemy. Then I helped my soldier down PFC Trevina, and then I got down. And after that, the enemy was suppressed, and the rest of the element that was doing the KLE linked back up with us. From there, we got into another firefight that lasted about 5 minutes. And our second platoon was about 400 meters to our east, and we came up with a plan to link up with them to go and stronghold another building for the night as a patrol base. So we did that. We were there for about 2 minutes, and after we were there for about 2 minutes, we got into about a 10-minute firefight. It was pretty RPGs, freaking small arms, everything. But first and second platoon really came together and won the fight. Really hammered them.
We were in the village for a few hours, and it was pretty hot, and we were all tired and ready to leave. So we all got in our formations and started heading out. And I had been with Sergeant Riva's squad that whole day, with Sergeant Riva, and the gun team that was assigned to his squad was Carroll and Carver, and then Specialist Gonzalez was the team leader in that squad, and I'd been with them the whole day. And we were leaving the village, and I looked to my south. I looked to the south, and I saw this kid just running across a field, which is always kind of an ominous sign. Then I just noticed all the people in the village just started leaving, just cars. I mean, we're all like, where's everyone going? Everyone was just loaded up into the cars, the vans, on their motorcycles, and just scooting out of the village. And pretty much as soon as they had kind of gotten their distance from us, there was a little wall, on our left side as we're exfilling this village, and then just gunfire. The Taliban just opened up, and we all hit that wall and just started shooting. And it, there was just a quick volley of fire, and then it stopped, and we're like, okay, so what do we do now? I just waited out, and then we thought, hey, we're just going to keep moving back to the compound, go get some chow, But I remember Carol and Carver and Towers, they stood up from behind this wall, and I was still crouched down. I'm a medic. I'm not I'm a healer, not a killer. So I don't want to get shot. So and I kept telling them, hey, get down. Like, this gunfire ended like 30 seconds ago. There's still guys with guns out there. Get down. And they're being, tough infantry guys, just, we're good. Well, then at that point, Sergeant Beisel's squad, Sergeant Beisel, they decided to maneuver on the enemy. As soon as they started running through this field, this round, just a single round, didn't even hear the gunshot, just whew, right between, like I had popped my head up, and right between me and Carol just hit the ground. He's like, I'm so sorry, Doc, I'm so sorry. And I just ripped into all those guys. And they're like, Carol's like, I'll never do that again, Doc, I'm so sorry. And in the meantime, Sergeant Beisel's squad's just, running into his field, and then there's just gunfire just opens up, and they're shooting, and there's just rounds just kicking up all around him. And I remember being like, I think one of our guys got hit, because the rounds were kicking up so close, and kind of a moment that I'll never forget is that Carol, he looked at me, he's like, Doc, don't think like that, don't ever say that, like I don't ever want to hear that, we can't think like that out here, like no one's hurt. He was like very kind of emotional all of a sudden, and I didn't realize that he was like that. I was going to go back with Sergeant Riva, but Sergeant Myers asked me to stick with his squad. He was the lead squad, and so I exfilled with Sergeant Myers. We went back up to that place where we had originally taken contact from, and there was a field just north of that little wall where I said that we had, engaged the enemy. And in that field, we crossed the field, there's a big ditch line. So the squad I was with, we crossed the ditch line, went up this road, and set up security. But, I'm the medic, I was kind of central in the formation. So I turned around, and like maybe 20 seconds after I turned around, there was just a huge explosion. And I jumped, I spun, I thought they were shooting an RPG at us because we had some experiences with RPGs, and I had been kind of anticipating it the whole day. So I spun around, and that whole field was just one giant cloud. And it took, about 10 seconds for us to realize, like, oh, that's our platoon. My heart just sank because I knew that's where, 3rd Squad was. And then Sergeant Beisel came, my platoon sergeant, he came out of the smoke. He was just covered in dust, and he was just yelled for me. And then that's when Sergeant Myers said go, and I just ran down the road. I was just taking my gloves off, getting, just making sure I had everything ready, because I knew that there were casualties. And I thought it was an IED, because we hadn't had any experience with suicide bombers at all. And like I said, we trusted the locals at that point. And when I hit the ditch line, I remember seeing Sergeant Priest, and he was like kind of walking like he was on a tightrope, and he was like, I think it was a pressure plate. and there was a lot of smoke, but I could just see across the ditch line. It was just carnage everywhere. And so they were like, "Don't cross here. You know, this is a minefield." I mean, that was what we thought. So I ran down here. I grabbed Sergeant DeVoe. I grabbed him. I said, "You know, I need you." And so it was me, him, and Sergeant Beisel. We crossed the ditch line. I saw the CO then, and he was kind of looking at me, and he said, "You know, how many we got? Like, how many casualties do we have?" And I said, "I don't know, sir, but I think we have a lot," because I couldn't distinguish, you know, what everything was. It was just carnage, you know. I saw Towers. He was wounded, and he was about 50 meters out into the field. So I said, and I could see he was, you know, he was conscious. He was sitting upright, and he was holding his legs. So I sent Sergeant Beisel out in that direction. So Sergeant DeVoe, you know, came with me, and we run up, and I see, you know, what's left of, you know, Sergeant Riva, and I see an A&A on the bank of the canal, and, you know, he's just decimated, and there's a A&A next to Sergeant Riva, and it's just clean. Just took his head right off. And I see Carroll and Carver's, the gun team, and they're on the bank, and like I guess they were just kind of in their Carver was kind of sometimes he'd always just kind of chill like this, and he was just kind of like this, but his head had been, you know, just had hit him in the head, and he was just didn't look good, you know, and Carroll was kind of laying next to him, looking better than everyone else, really, and just kind of laying like he was asleep next to Carver. And it was the most overwhelming experience at that point, you know, of my life, because I realized that, like, this is my responsibility right here. I'm all of this, like, I have to make this situation better. Gonzo was right next to the gun team, and I could see he was kind of moving a little bit. So we're like, "Oh crap, Gonzo's alive." When we run over to him and get him down, and he's just soaked in blood, and just start getting the tourniquets on, you know, and he had like maybe 20 different wounds on his body, because it was like at this point they started yelling, "Hey, it was a suicide bomber," which made sense because there was a pair of legs on the ground, just smooth blown off, like right here, just not even just like perfect legs with the sandals still on, you know. And so it was the suicide bomber, I guess, had strapped like 8 grenades to his chest with ball bearings somehow rigged on there. So Gonzo had been hit probably 20 different ball bearings. I'm going to guess. That's just from my memory what it looked like. You know, it's just he was bleeding from everywhere. You know, so we're you know, getting the tourniquets on. I'm cutting off everything, and everywhere I look, there's another wound, and he had a piece of bone, like human bone, sticking out of his forehead. And so once I got him stabilized, to the extent that I could, I moved to Milady, and Milady was there on the he was kind of like that. He had a tourniquet right here, which I later found out that he had initiated that tourniquet. Sergeant Priest had I guess finished, you know, singeing it down, but Milady had initiated that tourniquet on himself, and I went over to him, and his boot, his leg was just destroyed, and it was just bloody, you know, and so I pull out my shears, and I start cutting the boot like real carefully, and he's just like holding back the tears. I mean, he was in a lot of pain. I slowly get his boot off, and I cut the sock off, and he just like gets one look at his foot, and it's just like ghost white. I mean, it had just decimated his foot. And so, you know, I start wrapping it, you know, and I'm like, "Milady, I'm gonna give you some morphine now," you know. And he's like, no, no, Doc, don't give it to me. Give it to the guys who need it. I'm like, Joe, everyone's either dead or like, I can't give it to Gonzo. You know, he's too messed up, his head. I don't want him to go to sleep on me, you know. It was just a mad scramble to just just clean up this huge mess that this suicide bomber had left. You know, it killed 5 people, wounded, you know, additional 4, you know, and it was just all there, all in a very kind of close, you know, right there. I mean, flight medics came down, loaded everyone up, and I made a point to tell them, hey, you know, we got our wounded on, let's load up American and then load up an ANA, you know, when it came to the KIA, you know, let's show them that that we care about them. Because I remember when I was treating Gonzo, this ANA kept grabbing me by the shoulder and trying to jerk me away from Gonzo and tell me to treat his friend who was just about decapitated. And I was going, hey man, I can't do anything for him. Like, leave me alone. Like, let me work on this guy. He's still alive. You look at those situations like this is a problem that I can solve, that I've solved in training before. You know, you know how to solve that equation. You know, it's, you know, for a medic, okay, bleeding, stop. What do you do when you see bleeding? You stop it, you know. Collapse, you know, sucking chest wound, you know, occlusive dressing. And so when you look at it, you approach it like that, you know, it helps you to really calm down. You don't look at it as the tragedy that it is when it's happening. You look at it as a problem that you can. And the whole time I was just torn up. I mean, these were my friends. And I wanted to cry, but I did not let myself cry until everyone was, you know, in the air. And then I just kind of went off into the field. I just took a knee and I cried a little bit, you know. But if I'm supposed to be the medic and I'm supposed to be in control of a situation like that, I'm not going to break down in front of all these people that are looking at me to, you know, save lives and to make the situation right.
Bravo Company was the first company in the Sangsar in DWAR as part of Operation Nashville 2. Talking of DWAR, it's a small little outpost. It was an Afghani house with walls all around it with a small mud structure on the inside that kind of made the northern wall of it. And on the north, there was a road running east to west. Allowed people to get in and out of DWAR and down to Nalgam and other parts of the AO. It started off, half the platoon was up on guard and half the platoon was down resting for the guys that were going out. I heard an explosion and I woke up and I couldn't move and I was buried. I just sat there thinking I didn't know what happened. After you wake up, you don't know what's going on. And you can't move and you're buried. And a couple of minutes passed just trying to stay calm, trying to move, trying to do anything. And I hear guys talking, I hear guys on top, and I can feel guys digging on top. And it takes them just a little bit to get to me. I was the first one they got to. They get me out real quick, tear the sleeping bag off me and everything. I get up real quick, I ask I see a hole up on the roof above me, and then the wall behind me is gone. Ask them what went on, and they didn't have a full understanding of what went on really. It looked like a mortar attack. It hit the roof and it just came down. As I got up real quick, I was bleeding a little bit from the face. They tried to patch that up, just walked out. Linked up with my RTO, PFC Wilson. He was unburying the radio. They got buried because our CP was in there as well. He unburied the radio. He got it up and running again. And just talking with the guys quick, I looked up to the north wall and it was gone. And we had guys back there sleeping. And everybody in the platoon, half of them immediately, instinctively went out and started pulling security, like covering the hole that was there, making sure nothing else was going to happen as well. Once the guys that were on the roof that came through got up and started moving around. They said there was a truck that came barreling down the road, and it got within 60, 70 meters of the strong point, and then it just went off, and it was a V-bed. So automatically they were thinking a second attack's coming with a follow-up. And I did my job. I went to the radio after Wilson got it working, called the commander down at Sangsar saying we've been hit by a V-bed, and right now we're looking for 6 guys, because guys automatically knew where their guys were. And guys just started digging quick. They dug out Corporal Wright first. He was not breathing. Special 6 got him breathing again, got him good to go. And the guys just dug as quick as they could to get the other guys in the back. I was just calling sit reps up the whole time, getting guys collected. Just my job. And the guys did all the work that day. We didn't make it to 2 guys were sleeping in the corridor in the middle, Corporal Simonetta and Corporal Nekashe. There was just so much stuff on top of them, and then there was so much more stuff on top of the guys in the back. Were Sergeant McClawhorn, Specialist Deans, and Corporal Collins and Corporal Velasquez. We just couldn't get to them in time, and it seemed like it went by real quick, but it was like slow motion watching guys trying to dig stuff out, but they were going so quick. Guys their fingertips were bloody, digging guys out of all the mud and all the structure that came down on them. QRF came from our 3rd platoon down at Sangsar. They got there quick. They helped with the security and helped with the guys digging. Once First Sergeant got there, medevac started coming in and getting guys out of there. It was extremely important. In the way they did it, you can't plan to do it any better than that. They did everything they could. They took action right away. They knew what needed to be done, and they did it as best. It was their battle buddies. It was their friends, brothers. And they did everything they could. You can't do it any better.
The terrain over there, it's pretty rugged. You got in a normal patrol, 800 to 1,000 meter patrol, you'll go through fields of grape rows that are 5, sometimes 7 feet high, that you're going over and over and over each time. Ditches that can be almost 10 feet deep. You got flooded fields that are 100, 150 meters wide that are knee-deep mud. The worst possible terrain you can think of to walk through is there. But when you look at having to move, shoot, and communicate through terrain like that, and then pick up your buddy, put him on your back, and carry him through that terrain, it takes such a high level of physical fitness that, leaders just have to think about the worst situation that you could be in over there and try to simulate that into a PT program. The combat-focused PT in ACUs, low crawling, high crawling, sprint and throw a buddy on your back, and then pick up a 300-pound litter with 2 dudes and move it. It really is, functional. It's pretty accurate with some of the stuff that you have to go through over there.
As for physical fitness, definitely plays a role. Especially in situations like that. Especially for a medic in a situation like that. It wasn't the first time, it wasn't the last time that I had to run into a casualty, Sometimes I had to run 400, 500, 600 meters to a casualty, and by the time I got there, I would be so exhausted. Feeling like I wanted to throw up because I was so tired. And but you still have to do your job. At that point, you got to steady your hands. You're tired, but you can't work as if you're tired. It's it's difficult things to do. And so it's good to definitely something being in shape Everyone needs to be in shape, if not for yourself, for your buddies.
As far as physical fitness, one of the big things, is, that I've always harped on my guys is always having heart. Maybe the run's a little too fast back here, and maybe you fall out a little bit, but if you give up, there is no light switch that's on the back of your neck that as soon as you go into combat, you're going to do something different than you do here. If you give up on like the little stuff here, you're going to give up when it's hard over there.
For me, it taught me how to push through pain. You're doing a ruck march here, you get blisters on your feet or the weight's getting heavy on your shoulders, and you push through it because you don't want to be the guy that falls out. And it's the same thing over there. You don't want to be the guy that holds your platoon back, so you're pushing through the blisters on your feet or on your sores on your heels, the weight on your shoulder, the pain on your neck. It's all the same.
Training is always going to help you in any situation, no matter what training that you go through, whether it's the basics of training or it's more advanced training. Training is always going to help you. It prepares you physically and it prepares you mentally. The biggest thing, though, along with training is that you just got to remain flexible. Every situation is going to be different. At no time have I ever conducted any sort of training whatsoever in dealing with grey pros. That's something that you have to be ready to adapt to, and training helps teach you that. Adaptive.
You train like you fight, and every day, and that's on the NCOs in the platoon that got after their guys, team leaders, squad leaders, platoon sergeant, that made guys train as realistically as possible, and you do everything to completion 100% every time, and that's the way 2nd Platoon Bravo did it over there, and that's a testament to their professionalism and their dedication to their jobs and making sure that everybody's doing the right thing. And they're the guys that run it, and they're the guys that do it. It helped a lot. The first time we took contact, I was actually surprised with myself how quickly I just reacted like we were training out in the field in garrison, and it just went straight into that mindset, shoot something, and converted right over there. And then after the firefight, I thought to myself, wow, I didn't even realize I was getting shot back at, because it was just like training.
How important you have to have it to be a soldier, because you never know when your time will come when you're by yourself and you need to have personal courage, stand up and fight and not break ground to the enemy. So.
As far as leadership, it's really that the guys, they trust you, and through all the training, through all the Eagle flights, through all the everything from down as far as like doing PT, they know that when you tell them to do something, that you're telling them to do the right thing, and you're not telling them to do some jackassery or something that's going to try to get them killed. So it's just those guys having that trust that you know what you're doing and that you know what you're talking about.
Leadership, as far as my soldiers, definitely every day, I just made sure that they were tracking where we were going. We were going to Afghanistan, what it was actually going to be like, it wasn't going to be like the last deployment. And every day, no matter what, time we had, just try to do like sergeant time. I'd make them put on full kit every single day, go out there and treat a Moscow. I'd give one soldier 5 different casualties, give them like 30 minutes to do it every day. It's a smoker, they'd be exhausted and tired, and sometimes they'd want to know why they're doing it. But I think all my medics got Bronze Stars along with me. Everybody had some pretty bad stuff happen over there, and they excelled perfectly at it. And so I know looking back, I did a good job training them.
I am Lieutenant Colonel Deverona, Commander, 2nd Battalion, 502nd Infantry Regiment, the Strike Force Battalion.
And I am Sergeant Major John O. White, the Battalion Command Sergeant Major.
On behalf of the Strike Force soldiers, we'd like to welcome you to the Strike Force family.
You've all just finished hearing about the accomplishments of these great heroes and the heroics of several of our valorous warriors during the last deployment.
We're extremely proud of our battalion and soldiers. During this past deployment, we had 1 soldier awarded the Silver Star, 7 soldiers awarded the Bronze Star for valorous actions, and 35 soldiers awarded the Archon for valorous acts.
You now join the ranks of these heroes. We charge you with upholding the reputation, standards, and discipline of this unit.
Our command philosophy is simple. In the absence of orders, seize the initiative, mitigate the risk, and execute within my commander's intent.
In order to have an agile, adaptive fighting force, our leaders and soldiers must act decisively and aggressive.
As Strike Force soldiers, we want you to focus on 3 areas. Area number 1, moral, physical, and adaptive courage. Number 2, discipline. And number 3, a sense of brotherhood. Moral, physical, and adaptive courage will be the foundation for an innovative, adaptive, agile, and aggressive Strike Force soldier.
Moral courage means that in the face of adversity, temptation, and or other peer pressure, you will step up and do the right thing no matter how unpopular it might make you.
Physical courage means that you will have the mental and physical toughness to overcome any challenge you face. You will have the will and determination to successfully accomplish your mission, regardless of how tough or how dangerous you may think it is.
And adaptive courage means that you are able to adjust to a dynamic battlefield.
The second area we would like you to focus on is discipline. The Strike Force soldier will be disciplined at executing the basics to a high level of proficiency. Discipline is habitual. Habits harden the body for great exertion and strengthen the heart for moments of great danger.
You must condition yourself to be disciplined. Discipline is like a muscle. It must be exercised.
And last but not least, the third area is a sense of brotherhood. A sense of brotherhood will make us a confident force and allow us to fight and defeat our enemies. The Strike Force soldier will take ownership of his mission, share burdens and good ideas with his higher headquarters, adjacent units, and subordinate units.
As Strike Force soldiers, we are all accountable to one another. While deployed, you will not let your battle buddy, your soldiers to your left and right, move forward, step on an IED. Don't let that happen here in garrison or in training. Hold each other accountable. Prevent acts of indiscipline through aggressive, assertive leadership. Our battalion logo is a black heart with 2 Randall Commando knives. The black heart dates back to World War II. The Randall Commando knife represents the eliteness of our battalion. The 2 knives symbolize the battle buddy system.
And our battalion mascot is the falcon. In the Native American culture, the falcon is a natural born leader. Furthermore, this Native American symbol never wastes time. Rather, he or she always strikes while the iron is hot and takes action with what must be done. Always persistent and always seizing the initiative. The falcon, in a supportive environment, will always soar in his or her ability to remain passionate about the mission while always remaining compassionate when dealing with others.
On behalf of the Strike Force family, we welcome you once again to the Strike Force Battalion. We hope your tour with us will be filled with fond memories and tremendous pride.
Strike Force.